I actually love that scene for many reasons, because when we were in rehearsal, Andrew was a good friend of Heath's as well, and Heath during rehearsals suddenly became the character of Tony, and suddenly he was no longer Heath. He was a bastard. He was a real shit. He was doing awful things in rehearsals. And poor Andrew was completely lost because there was his friend suddenly stepping all over his lines and just ruining his attempt at a performance. And it was very funny to watch that happen. And Andrew started to sort of combat that by being aggressive like Heath was. And the scenes weren't working. And it was that scene was the one when we were shooting on the day, and suddenly it happened because I realized if Andrew's laughing, if he's playing, if he's magical, then Tony, the character he's playing, has no way of dealing with it. And it's the first time you actually see Heath as a questionable character. His mask is beginning to slip a bit. Anyway, that's the clips we're going to show. So where shall we go from now?
In just a moment, we're going to throw it open to some Q&A. I'm not sure if we have some mics in the audience.
Yeah.
And okay, we have some places for people to line up on both sides, or just one side?
One side right now.
There's one side over there. If we can start a line forming, we'll start taking some questions in just a moment. And while everyone is migrating over there to line up, I did want to ask you about the digital aspect of it. That when you're going into sort of a modern film, when you're looking at an artistic perspective and also a budgetary perspective, what do you choose to go to green screen with, and what do you choose to go practical?
This one's a bit difficult because what we chose at the beginning was one thing, what we had to do at the end was a different thing. We started with 250 effect shots and ended with 650. And it became a little bit more complicated. But what I was trying to do to save money was, well, first of all, I always like shooting models because there's a physicality, there's gravity, there's all sorts of things that work that surprise you that you can never predict, and that's why model shooting is always interesting. On the other hand, I've always used CG as well. It's just a very useful tool if you can disguise it. I think I hate it when it's too obvious, because somewhere deep down inside of us, I think our subconscious knows that's not real. But what we were doing in this one was inside the Imaginarium. I didn't want to create naturalistic worlds. They're not supposed to be naturalistic, so that frees you up a bit. So they're a bit more, I don't know, one of them is actually like Grant Wood paintings. It's more painterly and it's more cartoony in some of them. But they had to be totally believable at the same time. You had to believe you were in the place with these people. And so basically I was trying to build environments that we could build enough, we'd have enough real stuff there that the actors could react with and fall down and crash. And then the distant was always created by CG. And it kind of worked that way. I mean, there were certain things we were thinking of doing, you know, in a real situation, especially the section that Colin was in. But we were in Vancouver and we couldn't predict when any of the Jude, Colin and Judy were going, Jude, well, I don't know, did you see that in the film, the Smelly Powder film? Where yeah, I think this is actually very, very feminine, Jude. It's very sexy.
That's what you cast.
Yeah, but he did have to shave his body to do that part, so he is a hairy man, as we say, us Bible readers. But it's, but anyway, this is okay. We were green screening away. Yeah, so in the end, we had to do more green screen than we, in fact, we actually used blue screen this time rather than green, because we had a lot of grass on our sets, and so let's go for something that won't be green-like. So it was blue, and we did all that in Vancouver, so there was a lot of catching up. When we then came back to London, Peerless Camera Company, which is I'm involved with, has done the effects on all my films, so they got stuck with the business of trying to create all these worlds. But one of the things I was doing when we were writing the film was trying to avoid what happens when you're doing a big special effects film, which costs several hundred millions of dollars, is that by being in the real world for the majority of the film, and then going through this magical mirror, which you can see is really cheesy. I mean, it's a really cheesy traveling show, so we got there. But you go through, and then each time you go through, it can be a different world, different environment. So it's constantly surprising. And then you're not caught in that situation where you've got to carry the world through the entire movie. So it was me thinking I'm being very clever and saving a lot of money by doing that. In fact, it did save us a lot of money. It also made it more, I think, interesting for the audience because you just don't know what's going to happen next. There's always that surprise. And then with Heath dying, it became even more surprising because you don't even know what actor is going to be on the other side. So it's a surprising film, I'd say. I think the one thing I can honestly say is I don't think you've ever seen a film like this. That's what's interesting about it. I don't guarantee that I'll put that on a little stamp it on your forehead so that if I've lied to you, you can come and get me later.
And then also, as you said, as a compendium of your work so far.
Yeah. I just wanted that freedom of not creating the whole universe. You create a lot of little universes, and each one can be whatever I fancied at the time. And working that way, where you're in some sense throwing a certain responsibility out the window, and it becomes more playful, is nice. We do that. We do that. It depends who goes to the mirror.
We also went back to working with Charles McKeown.
Yeah, because
that's what 20 since Munchausen.
Yeah, that was actually strange enough. The very first version of the famous Man Who Killed. Actually, it wasn't called The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Then it was called Don Quixote. Charles and I tried to do that many years ago, somewhere after Munchausen, but Cervantes is impossible to put on the film, so we changed. And that was it. But, so I was bringing Charles back because I've been working of late with Tony Rizzoni, and Charles was free. I thought it'd be nice to go back and see if we could still work well together. And it's, again, a very good balance. I go flying off in all directions, and he sort of pulls it back and keeps it marching forward.
Is that what the relationship was like on those films in the 80s?
It tends to be. Charles is very playful and can be very silly as well, so you can fly. I mean, it was like when we did Munchausen, and then we got in this little situation that's 6 weeks into a 20-week shoot, all the money was gone. And, what do we do now? And, again, I was wanting to go home. I give up easily.
That's why they don't do bookings under control.
and Charles said, no, we got to do something about it. And there was, in the story of Munchausen, the biggest sequence in that film, which isn't in the film, was the moon sequence, where Baron and Sally go to the moon, and there were 2,000 extras. There was Sean Connery as King of the Moon. It was a real Cecil B. DeMille moment, spectacular. It was a completely different story on the moon, and when they closed the movie down after these 6 weeks of extravagant spending, and which wasn't my fault. Well, let's just get this out here, because you look like a decent group of people. Let me just speak honestly here for a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a book to that effect.
There is.
Losing the Light that explains exactly what happened, and it wasn't your fault.
It wasn't. Thank you. That's why he's here. And you can buy the Blu-ray, the 20th anniversary Blu-ray version, which also reveals the truth.
Yes, a candid documentary.
Yes. It's very funny when you see everybody talking about something 20 years before and how the stories match or don't match, as the case may be. Anyway, we were in a situation where you got 2,000 extras, these huge sets that were on the drawing board, and some of them, the skeletons had started to be built. What do you do? And Charles and I just got silly and said, okay, we'll have that scene take place in our production office. So the Baron heads off towards the moon and runs out of money and ends up in the production office with the accountant sitting around talking about how we fixed the film. And maybe just reading out the scene that was intended and then leaving the office and back into the movie. And now that's what we would have done in Python, and our brains were still functioning that way, with that freedom. And but then we made this very simple leap of moving into a big Cartesian universe, basically, the mind-body separation, and put 2 people on the moon, used some of the skeletons of the sets in there, and in fact, the most interesting bit is the arrival, where there's all these funny flat buildings that are rushing back and forth, and all they are the blown-up versions of the drawings of the sets we were going to build between the fort. And they were made about this high, and they were mounted on plywood, and then we colored them with felt tip markers. We added a few little sequins on pins that would glisten as they moved. We put them on little rollers, and that's all it is. And it's really good.